Welcome back again. Today we are going to be looking at the structure of the heart. This is a very important part of biology for those that are preparing for JAMB, post-TME, and every other related O-level exam. Now, in this class, we are going to be looking at the structure of the heart. For many persons, how the heart looks like, the different structure and the different parts is a problem. They don't even know the different parts of the heart. If they see the diagrams, they cannot recognize it. Some the textbooks they read have poor diagrams, and so they don't have good understanding of the structure of the heart. So if you are one of such person, this class is actually for you. And if you are an O-level student, then this class is generally for you. Okay, because you're going to be learning things you probably never knew before. So what we're going to be looking at is the structure of the heart, as I've said. Okay, so this is Dex Online Science Tutorial. If you are watching us on Facebook, do well to follow our page and also like the video. And if you are watching this on YouTube, do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also like the video. And one more thing, also share the video, whether you're watching on Facebook or on TikTok, on YouTube, wherever you're watching from. Do well to share the video so that others will see it and learn from it. So let's go straight to class. Now we're going to be looking at the structure of the heart, as I've said. So first of all, the heart has the size of a closed fist. Okay, so just look at your palm right now and you know close your hand to form that fist, like you want to give somebody a blow, and look at the size of your hand when you fold it as in the form of a blow. That is actually the size of your heart. Okay, the weight of the heart, or rather the mass, is approximately 250 to 350 grams, unlike the brain that is about 1.4 kg, that's 1400 grams. Okay, and the shape of the heart is a cone shape, and the location is behind, that's inside the thoracic cavity, behind the chest. Okay, that's actually mainly behind the breastbone, also called the sternum. Now you can take a look at the screen. You can see two diagrams. One of it I wrote correct, and the other one I wrote wrong, because many persons think that the heart is actually located on the left part of the chest, which is actually wrong. A wrong information. So the correct location for the heart is the middle of your chest, that's behind the sternum, also called the breastbone. Okay, now let's proceed deep into the class. Okay, now first of all, the heart has a very strong wall. I believe before now you have been told before that the heart is made of cardiac muscle. That's true. It's an involuntary muscle that continues to contract and relax all through the days of a person's life. All right. Now the walls of the heart has three layers. One of them is called the epicardium. The second one is called the myocardium, and then the last one is called the endocardium. So the epicardium is the thin outer layer. Okay, its function is actually to protect the heart. And then we have the middle layer called the myocardium. It is the thickest of the three layers of the heart. Okay, so if I go to the next slide, you are going to see the diagram of the layers of the walls of the heart. Now, you can take a look at the diagram and you can see the heart wall and the different layers. You can see the endocardium, you can see the myocardium, and then the epicardium. All of them are clearly shown in the diagram. So let's zoom in and see for ourselves. Okay, you can see the epicardium, the outer layer, the myocardium, very thick and muscular, and then the endocardium. So what was about the endocardium? The endocardium has a smooth inner lining and lines all heart chamber. Or in other words, it is the innermost part of the wall of the heart. Okay, so let's proceed into the class all the more. I believe this is very easy and simple to understand. All right, so let's go to the next page. We're going to be looking at the heart chambers. Okay, generally the heart has four chambers: two upper chambers and two lower chambers. Two chambers on the left and two chambers on the right. So we are going to be starting by looking at the two upper chambers. Okay, they are called the atria. Singular is atrium. Okay, plural is atria. All right, we have two atria, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the left is called the left atrium, and the one on the right is called the right atrium. So we are going to be focusing on the right atrium first before moving over to the left atrium. So taking a look at the right atrium, it is made of thin wall, like it is very thin. So you can see it in this diagram here. You can see that the wall of the atrium is kind of thin compared to that of the ventricles. So let's take a deep look at it and see for ourselves. All right, now take a look at this wall here and take a look at the wall here. You will notice that the wall of the right atrium, this particular wall, is very thin compared to the one of the ventricle. Okay, so generally the walls of the atrium, they are very thin, but most O-level biology textbook do use the word auricle to mean atrium, which is actually not a correct terminology. All right. So the right atrium has a thin wall. It's a thin wall chamber rather. It's one of the chambers, of course. I believe you know that. And then it has what is called auricle. Okay. So most times, even JAMB and other O-level examiners, they often want to take atrium and auricle as the same thing, even though they are not the same thing. Okay. At least in this class, I've got to learn that auricle is not the same as atrium. So the auricle is like an ear-like projection that is attached to the walls of the atrium, but it is not the atrium itself. And also, the right atrium contains something special. It is called the sinoatrial node. The sinoatrial node is called a pacemaker of the heart. What is the function of the pacemaker? The function of this pacemaker is to ensure that the heart beats in a regular order, in a regular pattern. So if you take a look at the heartbeat, you notice that it is in a regular pattern. It does not just beat anyhow and make anyhow sound. The contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the heart, they are all in regular order. Why? It is because of the presence of the sinoatrial node, which is the pacemaker of the heart. And also, the right atrium receives three blood vessels. That means there are three blood vessels supplying blood to the right atrium. And we'll discuss those three blood vessels later on in this particular lecture. Then after that, we have the left atrium. The left atrium is also a teal-walled chamber, just like the right atrium. And these are the features. Number one, it has auricles, just like the right atrium. And also, it is smaller than the right atrium. And finally, this one receives four blood vessels. Receive blood from four different vessels, unlike the right atrium that receives from only three. And you'll get to learn what those three and four blood vessels are as we proceed with the class. Now, this diagram you can see here is just another diagram to show you the different chambers of the heart. The right atrium, the left atrium, and we have the lower ones, which is the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So let's go ahead to look at the lower chambers of the heart, which are the ventricles. Okay, so the lower chambers of the heart, we have the right ventricle and then the left ventricle. So let's take a look at the right ventricle first, and then we'll take a look at the left ventricle. So for the right ventricle, the walls is moderately thick. Of course, it is muscular. Generally, the ventricular walls are always muscular than the atrial walls. Or in other words, the walls of the ventricle are always thicker than that of the atrium. All right. Now, it is moderately thick. It is not too thick. It is not too thin. That's what it means. And also, it is crescent in shape and contains what is called papillary muscle. You will get to learn about papillary muscle as we proceed in this class. And also, it contains what is called the chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae, they are tendinous cord that help to anchor the valves of the heart. You get to learn all of these in this particular lecture without missing anyone. Okay, what about the left ventricle? First of all, the left ventricle has the thickest muscular wall in the heart. It has the thickest muscular wall. So if you take a look at the walls of the ventricle in this particular diagram, you can see right here. You can observe that the wall here and the wall here are not the same. You can see that the one here is kind of thicker than the one here. Okay, that's because the wall of the left ventricle is thicker than the wall of the right ventricle. You can also observe it in the previous diagram. You can see the same thing here. If you observe the walls here on this particular part, you notice that it's thicker than the one on this particular part. All right, that's because the walls of the left ventricle is generally thicker than the one of the right ventricle. So let's proceed to the other page. All right. Now, also, what are the few features you need to know about the left ventricle? Apart from the fact that it is the thickest muscular wall, it is also circular in cross section. That means if you split the heart into two like this, let me split this one. Let me draw a line to show you the kind of split I'm talking about. Okay. Now let's say I want to split this like this. I divide this heart like this. Then if you take a look at the left ventricle, you notice that the shape is circular in nature. Okay, and also let me be quick to highlight that the wall of the left ventricle is 3 times thicker than that of the right ventricle. Now, it contains papillary muscles, just like the right ventricle, and it also contains the chordae tendineae, just like the right ventricle. And it is the left ventricle that actually forms the apex of the heart. What is the apex of the heart? The tip of the heart. Okay, so you can see the tip of the heart here. This is usually the location of the tip of the heart. It's because this diagram is really not well, structured. If it is those advanced 3D hearts, you will see that the apex is very deep, and it's actually mainly contributed by the left ventricle. All right. Now let's look at the valves of the heart. There are 4 valves found in the heart. Okay, divided into 2 groups. The first one is called the atrioventricular valve. Now, in case someone is trying to learn how to pronounce the name atrioventricular, don't stress yourself. It's a combination of 2 words: the atrium, and the ventricle. Okay, atrium is the is the upper chambers of the heart, and the ventricle is the lower chambers. So you pronounce the two together, it becomes atrioventricular valve. That's to tell you that this valve must be somewhere in between the atrium and the ventricle. So the atrioventricular valve and the atrioventricular valve situated between the atria and the ventricles, and we have two of them, two types of this particular valve. One of them is called the tricuspid valve. It is located in between the right and the left atrium. And the other one is called the bicuspid valve, also called the mitral valve. It is located in between the left atrium and the left ventricle. All right. Now, what else do you have to know about these valves? If you check their name, one of them is tricuspid, the other one is bicuspid. Bicuspid, sorry. Why is there a tri and a bi? Because tri means three, bi means two. So the one that is a tricuspid, it tells you that there are three of them found in that particular place. And the bicuspid, there are two of them found in that particular place. That's why I wrote structure, three cusp or flaps, okay? And then for bicuspid, there are two cusps or two flaps. I will also show you the diagram of it, all right? And also, what else do you need to know? They are attached to what is called the papillary muscle by something called cauda tendinae. We have mentioned this name over and over in this class. So the thing is, this cauda tendinae is a cord that actually attaches the valves to a muscle called papillary muscle inside your heart. And we're going to take a look at the diagram to better explain this. All right. Now, take a look at this diagram. You can see here. Let's focus on the first one. Okay. Now, let's look at the first one. Can you see the tricuspid valve here? This is the tricuspid valve. Okay. It's actually located here. But actually, the diagram has to zoom it and bring it out so that you can see what is inside. You can see that it has three flaps. This is one, this is another one, and then this is the third one. So three of them make up the three flaps. Okay, but you can also observe the same thing. You can observe what we said before in this particular mitral valve, also called the bicuspid valve. You can see that it has only two flaps. So that's why we have to call one bicuspid and the other one tricuspid. All right. Now, that's for the two atrioventricular valves. The same thing is illustrated here in this diagram. You can see that the particular valves, they are being highlighted. You can see the tricuspid valve here. This tricuspid valve is located, this is the atrium, right atrium, this is right ventricle, and you can see the valve somewhere at the middle. The same thing for this other side. You can see the left atrium, the left ventricle, and then you can see the valve in between. All right. Now for the cauda tendinae I was talking about, I said it's a cord. Okay, so you can see the cord here. This is the cord. That stuff you can see right here. This one is the cord. You can see that it's actually connecting the tricuspid valve to papillary muscle. You can see the papillary muscle down here. I'm sorry about that. This place. Okay, you can see there, and then you can also observe the same thing on the left part of the heart. You can see the cauda tendinae here, and then you can see, of course, the papillary muscle right here. So the function of the cauda tendinae is actually to connect these valves to a muscle called papillary muscles. All right. So let's proceed with the class. All right. I haven't talked about the atrioventricular valve. We're also going to talk about the semilunar valve. All right. The semilunar valves, they are found at the exits of ventricles. All right. Because blood normally moves from atrium to ventricle, and then from ventricle, the blood will move out into blood vessels around the body. All right. So in between these blood vessels and the ventricle, there is always a valve. The function of valves, generally, take note, it is to prevent the backflow of blood. Okay, so normally blood flows from atrium to ventricle. So there has to be a valve, something like a door, in between the atrium and the ventricle. So that once blood flowing from atrium to ventricle, the blood will not bounce back into the atrium. So the valve is there to prevent the blood from flowing back from the ventricle back into the atrium. Now, we are now looking at the semilunar valve, which are found at the exits of ventricles. So number one, there are two of them actually. The first one we're going to be talking about is the pulmonary the pulmonary semilunar valve. Okay, or you can call it pulmonary valve. Any science teacher should understand what it means. Okay, so the pulmonary valve is actually the valve found in between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk. Or at this your level, I will just advise you use the word pulmonary vein. Okay, so that's where this guy is found, this pulmonary valve. All right, so it is also three of them. There are three flaps. All right, just the way you also have it in tricuspid valve. And also know that this particular valve does not have cauda tendinae, and it is not attached to any form of papillary muscle. Papillary muscle and cauda tendinae is only peculiar to the bicuspid valve and tricuspid valve, which are together called atrioventricular valve. For the semilunar valves, they do not have cauda tendinae attachments and they don't have papillary muscles. All right. So the aortic valve is the second semilunar valve. This one is found in between the left ventricle and the aorta. The aorta is known to be the largest artery in the body, and it is directly connected to the left ventricle of the heart. So in between the left ventricle and the aorta, you can find the aortic valve, all right, and you can see everything clearly displayed in this diagram right here. So when you see blood moving, when you see blood moving in the heart, it actually moves in this pattern. It moves from here. It is coming from here normally. You can see the arrow. So it comes like this through the mitral valve, also called the bicuspid valve, enters the ventricle and then turns its way, move through this place. The moment it crosses this place, it is now in the aorta. Okay, so this is the boundary between the left ventricle and the aorta. So this part is aorta. This part is left ventricle. So right here you can see this valve, this particular valve called aortic valve. All right, this is where it is situated. So the aortic valve actually prevents the backflow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. All right, and it does not have caudal tendon attachment, like I said before. And this one is also, it also has thyroid cusp, or you can call it flaps. All right, so if you check, you notice that of all the what's it called? Of all the valves in the heart, you can see that it is only this one that has what's it called? Two flaps. Only the mitral valve, that the bicuspid valve. All the others, they all have three flaps, as you can see in the diagram. All right, so let's move over to the next page. Now we are going to be looking at what is called the septum. The septum is a muscular wall that actually divides the heart into two major parts. Okay, the heart is actually divided into two: the left part and the right part. I believe you will get admission when you finally get it. For those of you that will study maybe physiology or anatomy in school, or nursing, especially medicine and dentistry, like myself, I'm a medical student. So if you actually enter into school, when you start doing anatomy as a course, right? For those that will study anatomy, that's their career. So when you begin to do anatomy, you will now learn that actually the heart is divided into two. We have the left part of the heart and the right part of the heart. And there's this structure that divides it. It is called septum. That's singular. While plural, it is called septa. All right. Now you can take a look at this diagram right here. You can see the parts labeled as the interventricular septum. This is the interventricular septum right here. You can see it here. This part of the heart. It is called the interventricular septum. Why? Because it actually separates the two ventricles. It is the wall that separates the two ventricles, so we call it interventricular septum. Why? If there is one that separates the two atrium, of course there is one. So that one is called the interatrial septum. Okay, we'll clearly see that in another diagram on the next slide. Okay, so of course I have actually said that this is the septum that separates the left atria from the right atria. That I was talking about the interatrial septum. And for the interventricular septum, it separates the two ventricles from each other. All right. Now, the interventricular septum, take note that the upper part is membranous. It looks like a membrane. Meanwhile, the lower part is muscular. It has muscles. All right. So let's go to the next slide and see for ourselves. You can see clearly the interatrial septum and that of the ventricles too, the interventricular septum. All right. So here it is. This muscle you can see at the middle here is actually the interventricular septum, and you can see the interatrial septum very thin. All right. This is one that is labeled as you can see it right here. Okay. So these are the walls that actually separate the left part of the heart from the right part. So if you now check clearly, you now see that you can see that this is like one side of the heart and this is like another side of the heart. Okay, so those are the two parts of the heart generally. All right, so now we're going to look at the major blood vessels that are connected to the heart. Okay, normally blood comes into the heart through the atrium and blood leaves the heart through the ventricles. All right, so for the right atrium, it is connected to three blood vessels. One of them is called the superior vena cava, the other one is called the inferior vena cava, and the last one is called the coronary sinus. And you may not find this in your O-level textbooks because it's a very small blood vessel. Okay, the superior vena cava, from the word superior, it is upper. Okay, so it is actually draining blood from the upper part of the body and bringing it to the heart. So when I say upper part of the body, I'm talking about from the level of your heart in your chest region upward. So that's blood coming from your neck, from your head, and from your two arms. Okay, that's your hand. All right, or should I say your four limbs, or you can also call it upper limbs. So the blood coming from this area, they pass through the superior vena cava to the heart. Right from your chest downward, your abdomen, your private parts area to your legs, all the blood coming from there, they come through the inferior vena cava and then they find their way into the heart. Okay, so these are the three blood vessels. Why for the coronary sinus that you can see right here, this coronary sinus at the bottom, the third one that you can see right here, this one actually drains blood from only, I'm talking about this particular one under here, it only drains blood from the heart alone and brings it to the right atrium. So you can see that it's going to be a very tiny blood vessel. All right. Now, if you observe carefully, you will notice that there is a hole in this diagram of the heart. So you can see a hole somewhere at the middle right here. You can see a hole. Let me mark it out so that you can see it clearly. So you can see a hole right here. Good. That's actually the hole. I think that's the hole where the coronary sinus actually connects with the right atrium. All right. So let's proceed with the class. These are the three blood vessels that brings blood to the right atrium. And then on the next slide, we are going to be talking about the left atrium. Okay. So the left atrium is actually supplied by four blood vessels. Even though the left atrium is smaller than the right, but yet it has the highest number of blood vessels that supplies it. So there are four vessels that brings blood to the left atrium. The four of them are all pulmonary veins. Okay, so two is coming from the right lungs, two coming from the left lung. So together it is four. So right here you can actually see the pulmonary veins. Okay, you can see the pulmonary veins here. You can see those two red vessels. All right, and on this other side you can see another pulmonary veins. These two red blood vessels. So all of them, they are all bringing blood to the left atrium. So if you take a look at the left atrium, you can see four holes inside. You can see four holes. Let me quickly mark them out so that you see it. You can see four holes here. This is one. This is another one. This is another one, and then this is another one. So those are four holes where the four pulmonary veins bring supply blood into the left atrium, and you can see it clearly. I mean, more clearly on the previous page. You can see the four holes right here inside the left atrium. You can see all of them very clear in this particular diagram. You can see two here and two here. Okay, so these are the entrance through which they supply blood into the left atrium. All right. Now let's flip over. Now talking about the right ventricle. The right ventricle actually sends blood out to the lungs. Okay, and the blood vessel that takes blood away from the right ventricle to the lungs is called the pulmonary artery. All right, it's actually one particular blood vessel called the pulmonary trunk. But the moment it leaves the right ventricle, it will split into two. One of them will go to the right lungs, the other will go to the left. All right, so there's only one blood vessel taking blood away from the right ventricle, and it's called the pulmonary trunk. Though it will later split into two, which is the right and the left pulmonary arteries. And also for the left part of the heart, that's the left ventricle, there's only one blood vessel that takes blood away from the left ventricle, and that's called the aorta. And you can see it right here. Okay, this big, large red blood vessels, you can see it is clearly stated as aorta. Okay, this particular one, you can see right here, it is labeled as aorta. All right, and it has three branches, but these ones, they are not your business. Okay, you study these ones in anatomy when you finally enter advanced level. Okay, so the vessels leaving the heart, there are just two: the pulmonary trunk, as I've said, and then the aorta. Okay, so let's flip over to the next page. Now, here we're going to be talking about the supporting structures of the heart. Okay, first of all, the heart is enveloped by a sac called the pericardium. If you don't know that, take note of it now. It's enveloped by a sac called the pericardium, and the pericardium we're talking about here has two major layers: the fibrous pericardium and then the serous pericardium, which is inside. The fibrous is outside, the serous is inside. Now, this serous is also split into two major layers. We have the parietal layer, which is the outer one, and the visceral layer, which is the inner one. So, in between the parietal layer and the visceral layer, there is a space at that middle. It is called the pericardial cavity, and it is filled by fluid called the pericardial fluid. Now, let's talk about the caudal tendinae. Okay, so what's this caudal tendinae? I said it's a cord earlier. All right, so its function is actually to connect the AV valve. When we say AV valve, I mean the atrioventricular valve. That's the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve. Two of them make up the AV valves. So the function is actually to connect both the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve. So a muscle inside the heart is called the papillary muscle. All right, so the purpose is actually to prevent the valves from prolapsing during ventricular contraction. That means when they contract, so that the blood from the ventricle will not push the valve into the atrium. So the cord is there to hold it very tight. All right, so this diagram you can see here is actually the diagram of a fresh heart, a real human heart. All right, so you can see the caudal tendinae, they're like cords. You can see them, they're like wires. All right, clearly labeled in this particular diagram of the organ called the heart. Okay, this is a real life organ. All right, and on the next page we're going to see just the diagram. You can see right here, you can see the cords clearly shown. You can see the caudal tendinae, the way they are connecting the valves to the papillary muscles. You can see it in both diagrams clearly. All right. Now, on this other side, which is going to be the final part of the class, we're going to be talking about the papillary muscle. So, what's the papillary muscle? First of all, the papillary muscle actually projects from the ventricular walls. Okay, so you can see them clearly in the diagram, like very clear and obvious. So this is actually the papillary muscle. All right, this guy here is the papillary muscle. This particular one. Yes, this one I'm shading now is the papillary muscle. Okay, you can see that it's directly connected to the walls of the ventricle. You can see the other one on the left ventricle. Okay, so this papillary muscle is actually connected to the walls of the ventricle, and its function is actually to anchor the caudal tendinae, as the tendinae is trying to hold the mitral valve and the ventricular the mitral valve, which is the bicuspid valve, and also the tricuspid valve. All right. Now, let's quickly flip to the next page for a better view from another diagram. Okay, this is the diagram we viewed earlier. All right, so you can see the caudal tendinae, you can see the papillary muscle, how it is firmly holding the caudal tendinae. Okay, so this is where we come to the end of the class. So if you have not followed our page yet, if you are watching on Facebook, do that. If you are watching on YouTube, do subscribe and turn off the notification bell so that you will get updates when we drop the next video, because this video is dropped every blessed day. New videos are always dropped. So do well to always come back to watch the latest updates, and so you can learn and have better understanding so that your exam will not slap you. All right. So if you have any question, drop it down in the comment section and then I will attend to it. Thank you for listening. See you in the next class.